Hey guys, today we're going to look at doing calculations with simple interest. So for simple interest, we need to know this formula. It's I is equal to PRT. So what this actually means is I is interest. So that's how much you have to pay back on top of what you're borrowing. P is your principal. So that's like the amount that you're borrowing. And that's always like a dollar amount. R is the rate, so your interest rate, and T is time. Okay, and because the letters are stuck together like this, it actually means they're multiplied together. So in order to calculate simple interest, we're just going to be multiplying our principal, our rate, and our time. So let's do a couple of examples. Okay, so Ryan borrows $5,000 at 7% per annum, that means per year, for 9 years. So we need to calculate how much interest that Ryan will be paying. So first up, let's figure out where our principal, where our rate, and where our time are in this question. So Ryan's borrowing $5,000, so that is our principal, that's our P. Our 7% is our rate, and 9 years is our time. That's how long Ryan's going to be borrowing it for, so that's our T. So in order to calculate interest, it's going to be I is equal to P times R times T, and we're just going to put those numbers in. Okay, so I is equal to 5,000 times 7%. Now we need to write that as a decimal, so 0.07, and then we're timesing that by the time. So because our rate is per annum, our time is also yearly. Okay, so that'll just be times 9. So the interest that Ryan will be paying will be $3,150. All right, so now Tommy is borrowing $12,000 at 3.5% per annum for 6 years. Again, we're trying to calculate how much interest he's going to be paying. So first up, you've got to find the principal, so that's our $12,000. Our rate is 3.5%, and the time is 6 years. So we've got our P, we've got our R, and we've got our T. So let's write our formula. So it's I is equal to P times R times T, and now we're just going to put those values into our formula. So 12,000 times 3.5% written as a decimal, so that would be 0 because that number represents hundreds, 0 because that represents the tens, and the 3 because that's the ones, and then the 5 just goes on the end there. And then the time is 6 years. Great, type that into our calculator and we will get interest is $2,520. So that's how much Tommy will have to pay in interest over the 6 years that he's borrowing $12,000 for. Okay, next up we've got James. He's borrowing $10,000 at 15% per annum for 8 months. And again, we need to figure out how much interest he's going to be paying. Now this question is different, and I'll show you why in a second. So we've got our principal here. He's borrowing $10,000, so that's our P. Our rate is 15%, so that's our R. But the time is for 8 months. It is not in years, it's in months. But there's a difference because our rate is in years, but our time is in months. Okay, so they're not the same units. So when we are putting it into our formula, we have to write our time as a fraction. So I'll show you that in just a second. So let's start by putting in our P and our R into our formula. So I always start by rewriting the formula. So I is equal to P times R times T. Okay, so I is equal to, our principal was 10,000. Our rate was 15%, so we've got to write that as a decimal, so 0.15. And now our time, because our rate is yearly and our time is monthly, what we need to do is write 8 months as a fraction of a year. Okay, so how many months are in a year? A year is 12 months. So James is borrowing $10,000 for 8 months out of 12 months. So if you ever get a question where it has two different units, so one is yearly and one is monthly, you need to convert them to the same units. So, 8 out of 12 months. Okay, and then we can multiply those together in our calculator. So the interest that James is paying is $1,000. So super important to pay attention to the units that they're written in. Okay, so our last example, Aussie borrows $8,500 at 5.5% per annum for 4 years. How much will he repay in total? So this question is different because it's asking how much is going to be repaid in total. So that's our principal plus our interest, but we'll get to that at the end. First up, let's see if we can figure out whether we have a P, an R, and a T. So he's borrowing $8,500, so that's our principal. Our rate is 5.5%, and our time is 4 years. Now you'll notice that these ones are in the same units, so our rate is per annum and our time is also in years, so we don't have to write any fractions when we do this one. Okay, so let's put that into our formula. So we've got I is equal to P times R times T. So our principal is $8,500. Our rate is 0.055 and our time is 4 years. Pop that into our calculator. Okay, so the interest that Aussie will have to pay is $1,870. But it's not asking us how much interest Aussie's going to have to pay. It's asking how much he's going to have to repay in total. So obviously, if he's borrowing money from a bank, he's got to pay that money back plus interest. So in order to figure out how much he's repaying in total, we're going to have to add our principal and our interest together to get the total amount. So let's do that now. So to find the total amount that he'll have to repay, we're going to be adding the principal plus the interest. So the principal was $8,500 and the interest was $1,870. So all up, Aussie's going to be repaying $10,370. So there we have it, everything you need to know about calculating simple interest. Thanks for watching.